Good evening, all. My name is Annette, and I am your host here at Word on the Curb podcast. I am happy to have you here. Welcome back this evening. Tonight, we're talking about a few things, and if I'm sniffling, remember severe allergies. We're talking about a few things tonight. However, before we get started, I'd like to offer my deepest sympathies to the Robinson family of Trenton, New Jersey. My deepest condolences on the loss of your mother, grandmother, aunt, godmother, friend, neighbor, and pastor. You have my deepest sympathies. You know, the love of a mother lives on in us forever. Remember that. God bless you and your family. Tonight, Word on the Curb would like to also thank my producers, Frank and Christina Sasso. Thank you for helping to keep me engaged. That takes a lot. You guys are pretty brave. Thank you. I'd also like to shout out two of my greatest joys, my daughters, Amaris and Jasna. I am so grateful, and I thank God every day for those gifts. And they are certainly gifts. Tonight, we're going to talk about uh, us, like who we are, beginning with me. Remember, this is always my experience, strength, and hope. And what doesn't apply, please let it fly. Again, welcome to Word on the Curb podcast. You can see us on Facebook at the Black Girls Locker Room, on Facebook at, excuse me, on Facebook at Word on the Curb podcast, and on YouTube at YouTube Word on the Curb podcast studios. So it's studio on the end of Word on the Curb on YouTube. On Facebook and other social media outlets, including TikTok and Instagram, it's Word on the Curb podcast. We're here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Again, welcome back and thank you for joining us. We're happy to have you here. You know, when I look back over my life, and when you get to where I am, that happens a lot. The more seasoned you become, the more you look back to see what you learned, what your lessons were, what you can do better, and how if we focus on never or if we focus on later, it becomes never. So sometimes later becomes never. Whatever it is you want to do, please do it now. I was just 35. And time moves so fast. Part of what helps us is to hydrate. Hot lemonade with real lemon tonight, and eating fruit, drinking water, moisturizing our feet, hands, and face, and minding our business. I'm telling you, that works wonders for a glow. Again, I am Annette, and welcome back. Sometimes later becomes never. So I saw something that said she looked at her old life one more time, took a deep breath, and whispered to herself, I'll never see the old you again. I can identify with that. I can absolutely identify with that. But before I do, I want to give you some words of wisdom, right? Something I learned. The most successful people are those who are good at a plan B. Yep, there's more than one way to do it. I take notes. So, how do you remove your old self? How I'll tell you what happened. I was at home and it was during COVID. And I was struggling with COVID because my doctor had recommended, based on some of the issues I face, not to go back into the office until she approved it. And so I was working on that and I was out. of work, and I was working from home, which I was very effective at doing. And I believe many other people can be too. That's right. You can be effective working at home. As a matter of fact, where I used to work, the people accomplished more at home than they actually did in the office. That's right, they did. So why they brought them back to the office full time, I'll never know. Sometimes people need to manage people and not work, and that's exactly what happened in that instance. So I'm at home, I'm doing my work, and there's a board meeting, and some of the board members are on virtually. And so I wanted to get into the virtual meeting. And the guy said to me, "This is just going to be a private meeting." Well, I was an executive as well. And at that time, the second in command. And he said, "Oh, we're not going to, it's just going to be me. They only want to talk to me." And I subsequently found out that that was a setup from the get up with him and the vice president, all of whom shall remain nameless until a later date. But what made me take a look at myself was because I'm the woman, I was the wife, I was the sister, I was the friend, I was the godparent, I was the auntie, I was all things to all people, and happily at it. But I realized after a certain point, excuse me, that it was draining. It was absolutely draining, although I was happy sharing everything that I could because I always want to see a brother and sister pulled up. Because if we don't give each other a chance, nobody else will. I'm venturing a little off topic, but I want to get you to a place. And so I'm at home, and this dude is incredibly disrespectful as usual. And I finally took a look at myself and said, "What am I doing? Why am I doing this? I don't need to work. Why am I doing this? I've reached those golden years, and um, it's time for me to do some of the things that I need to do and I wanted to do." And in addition to that, as a direct result of some of the pressures put on at work, I had started to severely suffer from back problems, being in meetings that would last sometimes 3 and 4 hours. I don't know what you can accomplish in that period of time because after 45 minutes, you lose your audience, and sometimes before then. So, any meeting longer than that, unless it's an emergency, you're wasting your time as well as other people's time. You need to learn how to keep it short, sweet, get to the point, keep the main thing the main thing. So, I looked at myself that day, excuse me, and said, "I don't need this anymore." The old me, the one who wanted to see everybody advance, be promoted, be hired, have a chance. And that goes for family, friends, and foe. Because, see, I hired everybody, right? Um, I realized it was time to let her go. Because for everything I had been to everybody else, it was time to focus on. I always practiced self care, but it was time for me to focus on those things with and for myself. And when I got to that point, I'm telling you, I just looked at myself. I was standing in the mirror and I said, "I'm finished with this. She's gone. It's time for me." And to focus on me, to put all the energy that I had put into everybody else into myself. And so I had to figure out how to remove that person because she absolutely enjoyed helping others. She did. She loved it. And so letting go of that part of me to some extent, not completely, but to a very large extent, I had to slow down and spend some time with myself because so many things had traumatized me: death, betrayal, loss of friends, um, people who didn't understand what it took to work with others, and who didn't understand that this was a phenomenal opportunity for us to learn from each other. I knew I had to let go. So I had to slow down. I took an allergy pill. Excuse me. I had to slow down and spend some time with myself. And one of the things I learned in that time was I thought I had learned to be with myself when I lost my husband because I was alone a lot. And I did, but I was still working. So I had to learn to be with myself after employment, during COVID, and losing a lot of old people, places, and things. I had to learn to be with myself again in a different way. Because it's one thing to learn to be with yourself when you're still working and you're still out in the work atmosphere and you're still dealing with people every day. It's another thing to learn to be with yourself when you're absolutely with yourself. And COVID did that for me. As much as I hated that it happened, it helped me let go of my old self. And I also had to be honest with myself. Humility was a big part of it. I lost a friendship. Oh, here we go. We're back on. So I had to learn to be with myself during COVID in a way that I thought I actually knew when my husband died because I had been alone, so long after that. And learning to be alone in COVID, during COVID, was an altogether different ballgame because I wasn't going into the office. And I didn't know it then, but I found out I wasn't going back to the office either. So I had to be honest with myself in order to let go of that old person. Um, it took courage because things were blocking me. I had this idea because my parents, especially my mother, always said, help everybody that you can. And they're not going to appreciate it, but don't worry about it. And so that's how I lived my life. But eventually I got sick of it because the ungrateful are out there roaming and creating havoc, ungrateful folks. But the joy in being able to help people, to see somebody go from unemployed to sustainable, gainful employment was exhilarating for me. It made me feel good. And it did not matter, you know, um, what they did or didn't do. It made me feel good that people were having a fair opportunity. So, in learning to let go of the old me, when I looked at her, took that deep breath and said, I'll never see you again, that took courage. Because when you're used to doing things for people, and then you realize that you will always do things to help people, but not to the extent that you had been, it's a little difficult because that letting go requires a lot. And so I had to learn to let go. And I had to trust to let the new me emerge. And it wasn't easy. I kept fighting her. I wanted her to be back in, where she was, like doing for everybody. You know what I mean? Because I enjoyed that. I like to see people happy. I like to be happy. I like to see people succeed. That just excites me. I want to see that. And so I had to trust and let go and let the new person who was coming into being emerge. Not easy to do. But here's how I want you to know what happened for me. In the workplace, they have something called quiet quitting. It started trending, I think, around 2000, 1999, the quiet quitting. It happened in corporate first, I believe, but it started to happen all across the country. And although people may not have identified it as such, it was called quiet quitting. And that's where people worked hard and pushed hard to create a work life balance because some employers and people who don't know how to manage work expect people to be on call all the time. They expect to be able to call you on the weekends. You know, have you seen that little thing roaming around TikTok and Facebook and social media, Veronica, where her supervisor is constantly asking her to do things she's not getting paid for? You guys better pay attention to Veronica. She's trying to teach you something, and it's good stuff. But this trend started happening in 1999, I believe, and really took off in 2000. And it's where people made a decision that they wanted to have a work life and their life. They wanted both. They did not want to be totally consumed with work. And so they started to quiet quit. And in quiet quitting, what happened was they stopped volunteering. There are some people, I'm sure, that I know that are going to start doing the same thing. They stopped volunteering. They started turning down work outside their job description. This is called quiet quitting, and I'm laying this out for you because I want you to know how I quiet quit this thing, right? And they started to isolate themselves in a way that didn't involve them in all those extra projects at work, right? And they started taking their time, their sick time, their vacation time, something that they hadn't done before. You know, there are many people who work, and let's just say you get 10 sick days a year. They didn't use those sick days or vacation days. They would end up losing them because they didn't know how to say no. So, how does this relate to my quiet quitting? With respect to being the go to person in the family, with friends, even with foes, people who don't like me will come to me and ask me for help. No problem. If I can do it, I'm going to do it. If I can't, I won't. But the bottom line is I had to learn, how to let go and let people do their own thing. That's not easy when you're used to helping people. And sometimes people who don't know what it is, when people are just genuinely decent people who will help you, they think that they're taking advantage of you and or your help. And I want to put it out here tonight for anybody who's listening now and who might listen later. When people help you, it's impossible for you to take advantage of them. You might try, but the only person at a disadvantage in that situation is you. Put that in your back pocket. You can use it later. It's spare change for when you're broke. I quiet quit by refusing to answer every call for help. There were some things I couldn't do. And whereas before I would go out of my way, I wasn't doing that anymore. It was a quiet quit. Slow, quiet, with humility, with patience, with everything in me, just to do the right thing and take care of myself. Right? I did a quiet quit. I stopped loaning money. I don't loan any money anymore that I don't have in my pocket. I'm not going into my savings account to loan people money. I don't care who you are. I used to. I don't do that anymore, right? I love to cook. And there are people who thought they were taking advantage of that by showing up all the time and never reciprocating. They weren't. They just lost the opportunity to have that on a regular basis anymore. So, see, you're not taking advantage, you're losing. I had a friend that at each opportunity when he needed something or even wanted something, I'd work with him on that. He thought he was taking advantage. He did not. He's suffering for it right now. Right now. And not because of anything I did, but because that's how the karma bus works, right? So when you quiet quit, it just simply means we're not raising any hell. We're not fighting. We're not arguing. When we're finished, we're finished. You get reckless with me, I quiet quit. That's how simple that is. That's right. Quiet quit. No argument. No back and forth. No, angst. I just simply quiet quit. Start to fade into the background. Because, see, one of the things I know for sure, when you're reckless, I'm a flight risk. I told you that a couple weeks ago. You're reckless, I'm a flight risk. I'll board quick and be gone, right? That takes time to learn. Humility, self awareness, spending time with yourself, doing the things that you need to do to get better for you. Hey, listen, stop letting people test drive your love. Stop letting people use you. There's a difference between you doing what you want to do in terms of helping people and then just blatantly allowing others to use you. Stop that. I don't care who it is. Family, friends, business partners, husbands, wives, significant others. Stop it. Because your capacity to give will never be greater than their capacity to take. Quiet quit. Don't argue. Don't fight. Don't go back and forth. Don't make a scene. You don't have to make an announcement. The quiet quit is the best quit. Slowly back away. Yep. Put that anger down and slowly back away because it's not worth it. So the quiet quit is what happens when there's no balance. Something, excuse me, that we also refer to as no reciprocity, right? So don't be afraid to quiet quit. Don't be afraid to back away. Don't be afraid to spend time with yourself. Don't be afraid to isolate yourself from the situations where people are always volunteering and sometimes telling you what to do. Don't be afraid to back away from that. Don't be afraid to use your time for self care, especially at the office or in a business arrangement. Don't be afraid to do that. There's nothing wrong with you using time to take care of yourself. Don't be afraid to quiet quit. And if you don't know how to let go, tap us at Word on the Curb podcast on Facebook. Message us for help, and we'll send a coach to you. Okay? Somebody who can help you do that. Quiet quit. Husband cheating, wife cheating, quiet quit. Right? Boss mistreating you on the job, quiet quit. If there's no resolution to it and you've asked for resolution and it continues to happen and people who can help you ignore you, oh, by the way, remember this. HR works for the employer. They don't work for you. They process your work. I hope you got that. They process your work. They work. HR, personnel, human resources, works for the employer, not you. At your job, be a good employee. Do the best job you can do. But if you're being mistreated, do something about it. There are people out there who will help you. If your children are mistreating you, yeah, your children, quiet quit. All the extra help, all the extra money, all the extra energy, all the extra loans. I have some friends who just, their position is no matter what their kid does, they're just going to give them everything. Yeah, I used to think that way too. Yep. And I'm going to take good care of mine, but they're going to work for it. And so I don't care where you are, if it's a friendship, if it's your circle and your circle's not working for you, quiet quit. You don't have to argue and fight with folks. Quiet quit. Get away from them. That's it. Just get away from them. Yeah. Business partners who aren't doing the right thing, quiet quit. There are plenty of good people out here who will be your business partner and do right by you. The other thing is, when you see red flags, stop ignoring them. Yeah, that's what destroys people. My name is Annette. I am your host here at Word on the Curb podcast. Although my allergies, of course, are killing me, I'd like to thank you for being here and putting up with the sniffles, the sneezes, the coughs, and everything. And I'd like to wish you all a wonderful evening. We'll see you again next week. And don't forget, what doesn't apply, let it fly. But when it's time, quiet quit. That's right. Whisper to that person in your heart and your mind who always gives so very much of themselves until they're drained. That's not the intention of good life. That's not what God meant when He said, help others. We're supposed to help others. I don't know who you believe in, and whoever you believe in is all right with me. I believe in God. I believe in the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, to be clear. I'm a believer. But I want you to know that you never have to be in a position where people are mistaking your kindness for weakness or your willingness to help and be with them in their times of trouble as a weakness. Where there is no reciprocity at all, there's no peace. And some people will say, oh, I do what I do because I do. Yeah, of course you do. But imagine always feeding others, and at some point you're hungry and not one of them will feed you. I bet you'll change your tune. Reciprocity is important. Don't be afraid to quiet quit. Again, I'm Annette here at Word on Curb podcast every Wednesday at 8 p.m. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for joining us. Good night.